If she doesn't miss you, it's not because you did something wrong. It's because nothing changed when you left. Think about that. You stopped texting. You pulled back. And still, silence. No curiosity. No tension. No emotional reaction. That's not indifference. That's emotional certainty. And certainty is where attraction goes to die. Most men believe absence alone creates desire. It doesn't. Absence without impact is invisible. And that's why disappearing never worked for you. In this video, I'll walk you through 7 things that determine whether a woman feels your absence or forgets you entirely. Not manipulation, not games, just the psychology behind why some men linger in a woman's mind long after they're gone, and others vanish overnight. If you want to stop being easy to forget, you need to understand this. Number 1. No contact isn't silence, it's psychological absence. Most men misunderstand no contact, and that misunderstanding is exactly why it fails them. They treat it like hiding, like sulking, like pulling away because they're hurt. That's not power, that's retreat, and women feel the difference instantly. Real absence isn't about disappearing out of insecurity. It's about withdrawing your emotional availability from a pattern that made you predictable. When you're always there, always responding, always checking in, always adjusting yourself to her pace, her brain stops registering your presence as meaningful. You become part of the background, familiar, safe, emotionally inexpensive. The female mind doesn't react to consistency the way men think it does. It reacts to contrast. When nothing changes, nothing is felt. So when you're always there, there's no loss to register, no disruption, no emotional gap. Psychological absence creates that gap. The moment your energy is no longer accessible on demand, something subtle happens. Not panic, not desperation, curiosity. Her mind starts scanning for what changed, where you went, why you're no longer orbiting her world. And here's the part men miss. This isn't about punishing her. It's about interrupting her certainty. Certainty kills attraction faster than rejection ever could. When you step back cleanly, without explanation, without drama, without emotional leakage, you introduce perceived rejection. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that makes a woman ask herself questions she didn't plan to ask. Questions like, why doesn't he need me? What shifted? Did I misread my importance? That question is the spark. Because the fastest way to trigger emotional processing in a woman isn't to pursue her. It's to remove the assumption that you will. The assumption that you're always there. The assumption that she has you. Nothing makes a woman think faster than realizing she's optional. But here's the catch, and this is where most men ruin it. Absence only works when it's real. If you pull away but stay emotionally fixated, if you stop texting but keep watching her stories, if you disappear outwardly but remain mentally stuck, the energy still leaks. And women are remarkably sensitive to that. Absence isn't a tactic. It's a repositioning. You're not waiting. You're not hoping. You're not counting days. You're redirecting your focus back to yourself, your life, your momentum. When that shift is genuine, it creates a silent pressure. Not because she's being manipulated, but because her sense of control quietly erodes. She can't feel your presence anymore. And now she has to decide whether that absence matters. This is where attraction either wakes up or stays asleep. And the men who get this wrong? They think no contact is about getting a reaction. It's not. It's about removing yourself from a role that never inspired desire in the first place. Absence doesn't create attraction by itself. Absence reveals whether attraction ever had room to exist. That distinction changes everything. Number 2. If your life looks empty without her, she feels nothing. When a woman starts to feel your absence, the first place she checks isn't her heart, it's her screen. Social media is where she looks for confirmation of what your absence means, and what she sees there either reinforces your value or erases it completely. Here's the brutal truth. If your life looks like it stopped when she stepped out of the picture, she doesn't feel flattered. She feels relieved, because a man whose world collapses without her doesn't create longing. He creates pressure. A visible life is not about showing off. It's not about trying to impress her. It's a signal, a quiet one. It tells her that your momentum didn't depend on her presence, that your days are full, that your energy has direction, that you didn't pause your life hoping she'd come back and press play. Women don't miss men who disappear into silence. They miss men who keep moving. This is where most men make a costly mistake. They think no contact means total invisibility, no posts, no updates, no signs of life. And in her mind, that absence gets interpreted the wrong way. Not as mystery, but as stagnation, as emptiness, as he doesn't have much going on. And that kills attraction quietly. What actually triggers emotion is contrast. When she sees that your life is active, expanding, socially connected, but no longer centered around her, something shifts. Not because she's jealous yet, but because her sense of relevance starts to wobble. Here's the key insight most men miss. She's not afraid of losing you. She's afraid of losing her role in your life. When she sees you enjoying moments she's no longer part of, it creates a subtle form of FOMO. Not dramatic, not explosive. Just enough to make her pause. Enough to make her wonder where she fits now. Enough to feel that something moved forward without her permission. That's when absence becomes meaningful. But this only works if it's authentic. Forced photos, staged moments, trying too hard to look busy, all of that reads as insecurity. Women don't respond to performance. They respond to grounded confidence. To the calm sense that you're living well, not trying to prove anything. And notice the difference. You're not posting for her. You're posting because that's your life. She just happens to see it. That distinction matters more than you think. Because the moment she realizes you didn't stop, didn't wait, didn't shrink, she has to confront a new reality. One where you're not disappearing. You're moving on. And that's when missing you becomes possible. She doesn't miss men who disappear. She misses men who move on. Number 3, attention bait is a test. Fail it, and you lose power. Once your absence starts to register, something predictable happens. She reaches for reassurance. Not directly, not honestly, but subtly. Through a photo, a story, a caption that feels oddly timed, a post that seems casual, but isn't. This isn't coincidence. It's a test. Attention bait is how a woman checks whether she still has access to you without risking rejection. It's low effort, low vulnerability, and emotionally safe. For her. And most men fail this test without even realizing it. They like the photo. They watch the story. They react. And the moment they do, the tension disappears. Here's what that small action communicates on a psychological level. I'm still here. You still matter more than my absence. In her mind, that confirms control. Your disappearance no longer feels real. It feels temporary, manageable. Something she can undo whenever she wants. Validation works like a reward chemical. Every like, every reaction, every silent acknowledgement reinforces the same loop. Her brain learns that she doesn't need to invest emotionally to get a response from you. She just has to dangle something in front of you. And that's where attraction quietly dies. Because desire doesn't grow where access is guaranteed. It grows where uncertainty exists, where effort is required, where emotional reach has a cost. When you ignore attention bait, not out of bitterness, but out of self-control, you disrupt that loop. She notices the absence of your validation immediately. And unlike before, there's no easy fix. No quick way to confirm she still has you. That discomfort is important. Not because it hurts her, but because it forces her to sit with uncertainty. To feel the gap your absence created, instead of numbing it with reassurance. And when a woman can't close that gap on her terms, she starts thinking, replaying interactions, reassessing dynamics. This is where many men get confused and tell themselves they're being cruel or manipulative. They're not. They're simply refusing to participate in a dynamic that drains their value. You're not ignoring her to win. You're maintaining the integrity of your absence. And there's a difference. Because the moment you validate her test, you erase the very thing that made her curious in the first place. You collapse the tension. You hand control back. You turn a psychological opening into another closed loop. The moment you validate her test, you erase your absence. And without absence, there is nothing to miss. Number 4. Excitement is neediness in disguise. When she finally reaches out, and she will, most men think that's the moment to show interest again. To sound warm, enthusiastic, relieved. They believe that if they respond with enough energy, they'll rebuild connection. That instinct is exactly what gives their power away. When a woman reappears after absence, she isn't listening to your words. She's observing your emotional state. She's measuring how much impact she still has over you. And nothing reveals dependency faster than eagerness. Overexcitement sends a clear signal. I was waiting. Long messages send another one. I've been holding this in. Immediate emotional warmth tells her, my center of gravity is still you. And in her mind, that collapses the mystery. The absence no longer feels costly. It feels performative. Calm, vague responses do something very different. They don't punish. They don't reject. They simply communicate stability. A grounded emotional baseline that doesn't spike just because she knocked on the door again. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about emotional self-control. Think about the contrast. A simple, steady, "Hey, how are you?" carries more confidence than a paragraph explaining how busy you've been or how good it is to hear from her. The first says you're centered. The second says you're proving something. Women don't read words the way men do. They read emotional subtext, and eagerness always carries the same subtext. I need this to go somewhere. That need is what kills attraction. Vagueness, on the other hand, creates space. It keeps the frame intact. It tells her you're open, but not invested in an outcome. Present, but not leaning forward. And that balance is uncomfortable in a way that sparks curiosity. Because now she has to do something men usually do. She has to lean in. This is where men panic. They worry they'll seem cold, disinterested, risky. But attraction isn't built on reassurance. It's built on emotional polarity. On the sense that you're steady whether she stays or goes. This is not a texting technique. It's a posture. A man who controls his emotional output controls the dynamic. He doesn't rush to fill silence. He doesn't over-explain. He lets interactions breathe. And in that space, something important happens. She starts adjusting to you instead of you adjusting to her. Men who control their emotions control the frame. Number 5. Jealousy works when it's ambiguous, not loud. Most men hear the word jealousy and immediately think of extremes, provoking, showing off, trying to prove they have options. That kind of jealousy doesn't create desire, it creates distrust. And once a woman feels manipulated, attraction shuts down fast. Subtle jealousy works for a very different reason. It doesn't rely on proof, it relies on imagination. The female mind fills in gaps instinctively. When information is incomplete, her imagination does the work for you, and imagination is always more powerful than reality. It personalizes the story. It intensifies emotion. It keeps her thinking long after the moment passes. This is why ambiguity matters. You don't announce that you're seeing someone. You don't hint loudly. You don't explain. You simply allow the possibility to exist. A social moment that includes other people. A photo where another woman is present but unexplained. A life that clearly contains options without advertising them. You're not trying to trigger insecurity. You're allowing uncertainty. And uncertainty is uncomfortable when a woman no longer feels in control. Here's the distinction most men miss. Jealousy only works when it's quiet. When there's nothing to confront, nothing to accuse, nothing to challenge directly. The moment she can point to something and say, "You're doing this on purpose," the effect is gone. Because now it's not intrigue, it's defense. The goal isn't to make her feel threatened. It's to make her wonder, to subtly shift her internal question from "do I want him?" to "why do I suddenly feel replaceable?" That question changes behavior. But there's a warning here, and it matters. If you overplay this, you lose value. Trying too hard to signal options makes you look reactive. It communicates that you're still seeking validation, just from a different angle. Real leverage comes from not needing her to notice at all. When your life naturally includes other people, other interactions, other possibilities, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't confirm. You don't deny. You let her curiosity do what no argument ever could. And that's where jealousy becomes effective, not as manipulation, but as a reflection of reality. You're not threatening her position. You're removing the guarantee of it. You don't need another woman to create this effect. You need the possibility of one. Because the moment she senses that your attention is no longer exclusive by default, her emotional investment shifts. Not outwardly, internally. And that internal shift is what makes missing you unavoidable. Number 6, memory anchors make you hard to erase. There's a reason some people linger in your mind long after they're gone, and it has nothing to do with how often they texted you. The human brain doesn't remember presence. It remembers association. And women are especially responsive to this. Her mind links emotions to symbols, words, sounds, small details that bypass logic and go straight to feeling. When those anchors are set correctly, you don't need to remind her you exist. Something else does it for you. This is where most men misunderstand connection. They think being remembered requires effort, consistency, repetition. But repetition without impact fades fast. What lasts is imprint. A nickname isn't childish when it's done right. It's a psychological shortcut. When you attach a familiar word to a shared emotional moment, her brain stores it together. Later, when she hears that word in a different context, the emotion resurfaces. And so do you. The same applies to music. A phrase you used, a specific way you described something, even a scent or setting you shared once. These details matter because they bypass conscious resistance. She doesn't choose to think about you. It just happens. And that's the point. When you're absent, memory anchors are what keep you present without effort. You're no longer chasing attention. You're occupying mental space. Quietly, passively, powerfully. This is why men who rely on constant communication lose their edge. They overwrite emotional memory with noise. Too much access dulls impact. But when your presence is selective and your imprint is precise, something different happens. She remembers how she felt around you, not just what you said. And feelings are harder to dismiss than facts. Here's the key distinction. You're not trying to create nostalgia. You're creating recognition. A subtle emotional echo that reappears when she least expects it. When she's driving, scrolling, laughing at something that suddenly reminds her of you. That's not coincidence. That's association doing its work. Most men disappear the moment they stop engaging. Men who understand memory anchors don't. They resurface in her thoughts without warning, without permission, without lifting a finger. And the more time passes, the stronger that effect becomes, because now your absence gives those memories room to breathe. The strongest presence isn't constant. It's the one that appears when you're gone. Number 7. Teaching her something changes how she sees you. Attention is cheap. Any man can give it. Consistency is common. Anyone can offer that too. But teaching, real teaching, does something entirely different in a woman's psychology. It repositions you. When you teach a woman something new, you're not just sharing information. You're signaling leadership, calm authority, the ability to see farther than she does and guide without forcing. And that combination creates a unique form of attraction that doesn't fade when attention stops. This isn't about lecturing. It's not about correcting her or trying to sound impressive. Women don't respond to men who try to prove they're smart. They respond to men who expand their world effortlessly. Teaching works because it creates emotional safety and respect at the same time. She feels guided, not controlled, seen, not judged. And that balance is rare. When a woman learns something meaningful from you about life, perspective, a skill, a way of thinking, she associates that growth with your presence. Even after you're gone, the shift remains. Every time she uses that insight, you're part of the experience. That's how you stop being replaceable. Most men try to be remembered by being entertaining, attentive, or agreeable. But those roles are temporary. They don't change how a woman sees herself. Teaching does. It leaves a mark. And notice something important here. The delivery matters more than the content. Calm authority beats enthusiasm. Confidence beats excitement. You're not trying to convince her of anything. You're simply grounded in what you know. That grounded energy communicates leadership without words. This is why mentorship is so powerful. A woman may forget who made her laugh. She rarely forgets the man who helped her see differently, who shifted her thinking, who elevated her standards, even unintentionally. At this point, the dynamic changes. You're no longer just the guy she talks to. You become the man who shaped how she thinks, how she views situations, how she understands herself. And that identity shift is permanent. Now the question is no longer whether she misses you. That question becomes irrelevant. Because missing you isn't the goal, it's the consequence. A side effect of who you became and how you showed up. When a man leaves an imprint, instead of chasing a reaction, he doesn't need to ask for space. He creates it naturally. And when he's gone, the space he leaves behind isn't empty. It's filled with perspective, growth, and memory. That's when being forgotten stops being an option. If you've been listening closely, you've probably realized something uncomfortable by now. Making a woman miss you was never about getting her attention back. It was about understanding why your presence stopped having weight in the first place. Women don't miss men who chase. They don't miss men who explain. And they don't miss men who orbit quietly, hoping to be chosen. They miss the shift. They miss the moment something changed. When your energy pulled back. When your life kept moving. When your emotional control stayed intact. When your absence created space instead of noise. Missing you isn't a goal you pursue. It's a consequence. A byproduct of a man who no longer gives his time, focus, and validation away for free. A man who holds his frame. Who lives with direction. Who leaves an imprint instead of a trail of messages. The truth is, the moment you stop trying to be remembered is the moment you become unforgettable. Because now, she's not reacting to what you do. She's responding to who you are. And that's the only level where attraction survives absence. This isn't about winning her back. It's about no longer losing yourself. When you understand this, you stop measuring your value by whether she texts. You stop waiting for signals. You stop shrinking your life to fit inside her attention. And paradoxically, that's when women start feeling the loss. Not because you demanded it, but because you no longer needed it. If you recognized yourself somewhere in this video, leave a comment and say what shifted for you. Awareness is always the first step. And if you're ready to keep learning how to read female behavior clearly, stay grounded in your power and never find yourself emotionally outmatched again, subscribe. Control doesn't come from force, it comes from clarity. And now you have it.